Right, okay, here we go. First proper AMA, Ask Me Anything episode, exclusively for subscribers to the podcast. Admittedly, there aren't very many of you right now. I'm hoping that by sort of producing these episodes and having that paywall, that barrier, sounds like a bad way to put it, but by having that there, it might intrigue people, and people want to more people want to donate and subscribe. And I think I've actually said this in the past. I think I've sent it out to you guys in your email when you've subscribed. At the moment, you know, the reason I want people to subscribe is, you know, the podcast is at the moment, it's not big enough for me to be sort of earning a living off or anything like that. We're a long way off that. At the moment, I'm just sort of concentrating on trying to perfect my craft and build an audience. But because I'm in that mode at the moment, that your help is especially appreciated. Because when I say that you're supporting the podcast, that's not a euphemism for you're lining my pockets. It's, you know, my financial situation is such that this podcast is it's a liability. You know, it's there's overheads involved, and they're not like extortionate or anything like that. It's not like a council tax bill, but they are significant enough that after YouTube demonetized the channel, and the way our income is, it would make sense, you know, if we were having to, me and Leanne were having to cut back on things, it would make sense that the podcast would be one of the first things to put on the chopping block, because it's sort of, you know, it's costing money and it's not bringing any in, and, you know, when you're struggling, it doesn't make sense to continue with something like that. So right now, you guys really are supporting this podcast, keeping it going, giving it a future, and I really appreciate that. Okay, so the way we're going to do these episodes is just very casually. Okay, so no rehearsal, no editing, no scripting, anything like that. It's just going to be sort of me just sitting here riffing, really, on the questions that you guys have sent in, which will make a nice change for me as well, actually, from all like the research and preparation that I have that goes into like the interview episodes. Some of them really do take a while to prepare for, and so it's just going to be nice for me to just sort of relax and have fun and go with the flow for a change. So it's going to be these episodes are going to be a mixture of sort of learning a bit more about me, because I think everything you know about me is in a mental health context. Any sort of personal things I've shared are all about how fucked in the head I am, and trying to relate it to how fucked in the head you are. So yeah, I do get questions from you guys which are asking about other aspects of my life, so I'm going to be answering some of those. What else? Oh yeah, be of course offering, you know, tips and advice to do with mental health related things, and just plain old like fun, silly stuff as well. A bit of light relief, because as I always say, you know, we do talk about really fucking serious topics, so I think occasionally it's important to have a bit of a laugh every now and again, which is why I'm always sort of comedically pissing and moaning in the introductions to the interviews. So I've got like 5 or 6 questions here. We'll see how many we get through. I want to sort of keep this to around 60 minutes ideally. We might go a bit over that. So yeah, let's jump in, have a crack at this, see how it goes. So first question, bit of a weird one this, right? But I do get this question quite a lot in various forms. I think you guys might be like worried about me or something. Okay. And I don't know whether to sort of give people's names out and stuff on this. I've not decided what I'm going to do with that, about who's asked the questions. I'm going to refrain from doing that for now, until I figure out whether it's a good idea. Maybe I'll sort of ask people to tell me whether or not they want me to use the names from now on. Might be a good idea. But this is the best worded way that this question's ever come through to me. So it's I've heard you mention on the podcast a couple of times that you're not very sociable and that you don't have any friends. Is this really true? And if so, why? Well, it's true that I'm not very sociable. Okay, and so I do sort of joke about that a lot, but I'm not sort of being quirky or sarcastic when I talk about it. I don't like going out. I don't like being around people. I never really have. I was like a bit of a loner as a kid. I was a loner in high school. Not at first, like at first few years and stuff. I tried fitting in and all that, and pandering to like the peer pressure or what have you. But towards the end, I got bored and just sort of isolated myself and loved it. So yeah, I'm one of those. If I'm out with people, around people, I'm sort of counting down the hours until I have to leave. When I'm there, I'm usually sort of doing my best to just sort of fade into the background and avoid conversation as much as possible. I'm not like rude or anything like that. I'm not ignorant. I don't sit there with like a face like a slap tart or anything. I'd just rather not be in social situations. I'd rather be sort of at home reading or whatever. And I'm not miserable either. Like, I'm not sad about it. I think sometimes people sort of equate being unsociable with being sort of miserable or sort of angry or whatever. That's not the case. I just like being by myself. To tell you the truth, I'm actually really good at socialising, even though I don't enjoy it as like a set of learned techniques. I'm really good at it. Like when I have to switch it on, I'm like Daniel Day-Lewis, like a method actor when it comes to socialising. And well, believe it or not, I'm actually sort of writing the first draft of an ebook right now about how if you're socially awkward like I am, how to be confident in social situations, because that's what I learned to do. And I've spoken about this before, but just for people who don't know, back in like 2014, I started what I intended to be like a small mental health support group when I was at the worst of it with like anxiety and agoraphobia. And it was genuinely intended to be for like maybe up to 10 people, something like that. I thought mental illness or whatever was sort of a niche thing back then. Turns out not, because the group ended up growing to like 5,000 members. And that sort of required me to sort of host the events. Like, I intended it to be therapy for me. Everyone was sort of in the same boat, and we'd just sort of sit as equals, talking to one another around a table or whatever in a pub. But yeah, it turned into this like big event hosting sort of get up. And I'd have to talk to people. I'd have to introduce people to one another, initiate conversations, playing games, doing public speaking, coaching people, you name it. Like, I had to be a leader. And yeah, as part of that, it was, like I say, it didn't come natural to me. It was sort of learning a set of techniques, like, learning to fix my posture, maintain eye contact, project my voice, speak from my chest, smile, never run out of things to say. And I learned all those things, and now I can sort of switch it on. But yeah, it's I do joke about like not liking people. I say that I hate people, I don't like people. That's not true. That is me exaggerating. I do like people. I love talking to people. I love hearing people's stories, like the life stories and stuff. Like when I was working as a driver for the escort agencies, this sounds a bit cheesy, I guess, but I think that the thing I like most about it, even though it was like, yay, party time with escorts, sex, drugs, blah, blah, blah. Even when I was younger, when I first got into it in my early 20s, the thing that I enjoyed most about it was just talking to the girls and just hearing people's like different stories and stuff. And like with that job, with the escorting, sometimes you're stuck in a car sometimes for hours on end waiting for jobs to come in. And yeah, you spend a lot of time in close quarters with people, and it's just like, remember as a kid where you'd just sort of, I don't know, you'd be maybe like 12, 13 years old, and you'd have these sort of sleepovers with your mates, or maybe go camping or whatever, and you just sort of lie on the grass and lie looking up at the stars, and you just sort of philosophize and put the world to rights. Well, that's basically what we did, but I was doing it every night as a job. And as an adult as well, and a lot of people sort of reminisce about wanting those sort of nights and wanting to be able to do that again. And I was doing that all through my 20s with people. And I loved it. And like, again, I was at a conference, like a psychology conference just last week. And, you know, it was nice. I met some really cool people, really welcoming. But still, I'd just rather not do that sort of thing. It's the social aspect, the one-on-one. I love it. But the crowd, it's not for me. I find it exhausting. Like after that conference, I usually get by on like 5 or 6 hours sleep a night. After that conference, I was like vibrating when I came out of there and went home and like slept for about 12 hours. I never sleep that long, but it just, after social events, it exhausts me that much. As for friends, like having friends, do I have any friends? Not really. I've got like 1 or 2 people that I'd sort of tentatively, like I'd call them like a mate. But we're not close. It's not like what you'd call like a real friendship. Like, you know, we talk to each other on like a semi-regular basis, but I wouldn't like confide in these people or anything. I wouldn't like trust them with any sort of secret. Like the last proper friend I had, last time I saw him was when Roman was born, and he's like 7.5 now. And I was friends with this guy from like being a teenager, him and his younger brother, but we just sort of drifted apart. Yeah, like, you know, we grew up a couple of like chavs together, you know, like we were in a little gang and we're drinking and smoking, doing drugs and like robbing shit from the co-op and that sort of thing. But like as I approached like 25, I started getting bored of that, whereas he didn't. Like he's pushing 30, still robbing tracksuits from Sports Direct and talking about fighting all the time. And I think part of it is just as you get older, your friends just sort of naturally fall away as you evolve, you change, or you fall out with each other or whatever. Like a lot of people I went to school with, they're like still friends with each other. But I left school without any friends, you know, so I was already off to a bad start. There wasn't anyone to fall away in the first place. And I think just when you get older, the idea of making friends is just weird, like grown-ups making friends with each other. I did try with a couple of people at like the support group, like meeting up with people away from the group and stuff, but it quickly became apparent that like the only reason they were meeting up with me was for like free advice. You know, I was more like a therapist. Like every conversation we had was about them and their problems. And, you know, I don't mind helping people. That's what this podcast is all about. But, you know, sometimes it'd be nice to just not do this. Do you know what I mean? To just talk about something other than depression and trauma and stress and what have you. It's funny, in fact, I think that like the closest thing I've got to anything resembling a friend is a guy who is a property millionaire. And we hang out like, I don't know, every few months or so. I'm supposed to be going seeing this big fuck off new house he's bought soon. But because I think because of his financial situation being what it is, it affords him like a higher level of independence, if you like. And so the relationship isn't like, it's not loaded with any sort of expectation. Like we don't need or want anything from each other. And that's why it works. But because of that as well, we don't make the effort, so we hardly ever see each other. I am in touch with a couple of the girls that I used to work with at like the escort agencies. But again, whenever we speak, it's mostly sort of reminiscing about the good old days, working for the agencies and stuff. And I think because, you know, that sort of environment is very much like it's a unique shared experience that I don't know, for some reason you sort of feel the need to talk about every now and again. It's the kind of thing that you can't talk to your family or your usual friends about. So we kind of cling to one another for that purpose. You know, we don't really meet up or anything and socialise like friends would. It's just sort of over the phone twice a year. But yeah, like Leanne, my girlfriend, like she goes to people's weddings and they have baby showers and birthday parties and dinner parties and stuff like that. That's weird to me. Like I will meet people. I'll meet up with someone in like a bar or a cafe and talk for an hour or two. But like that's as far as it goes. Like I'm not going to a dinner party. That's well awkward. Would I like to have friends? You know, someone to like trust and confide in a way that's, you know, sort of separate from my relationship with my girlfriend. I mean, I guess it'd be nice. I can't see it happening, to be honest. But I'm not lonely or anything. I think sometimes that's why people seem to ask this question so often. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Like the idea of nobody coming to my funeral, like that concerns me not one iota, not bothered. And if I'm being completely honest, in a sort of very cynical way, I'm not sure how much I actually believe in the concept of friendship. To be honest, I think for an adult anyway, I think maybe it's a kid's thing. I think at this point in my life, it just kind of, it feels like you have your family and then associates, but then this idea of like friendship, which supposedly sort of occupies a middle ground, it just, I don't know. I don't know if I really believe in it. Like the idea of feeling close to somebody in a way that like friends often seem to claim that they do, like Leanne and her mate Ella, like they're all lovey-dovey and stuff, like they're close and they say they love each other and send each other cards and stuff like that. And it's just not, I don't know, it's just not a concept I understand. Like even when I did have friends, I didn't feel like that about them. Which I suppose if there's any psychotherapists listening, maybe this would, classify me as someone with a personality disorder if I believed in that shit, which I don't. Need to do an episode on that soon, actually. Okay, next question. If you could only give one piece of advice to someone suffering with depression, what would it be? Okay, so again, another question I've sort of got in various forms over the years. Most sort of memorable for me was, I had this question put to me at the end of, I did an interview with a journalism student about a year and a half ago or something. And I have to be honest, when she asked it me, it sort of, because I knew it was going to be sort of written down in print, it sort of threw me. She caught me off guard. And so, like, rather than give her an answer, I decided to just sort of opt out and say, well, I'll get back to you on that one, knowing full well I wouldn't, and that she probably wouldn't care about it anyway. Because I knew it was just sort of, she's a journalism student, right? I just knew it was just like a generic interviewing 101 sort of question. It's kind of generic question you hear at the end of every interview with like everything from like a rock star to a business owner. What one piece of advice would you give to someone who wants to be an actor, wants to be in a band, wants to own a business? That kind of shit, yeah? And I think what people are fishing for with that question is what a magic bullet, yeah? And there isn't one for anything. Okay, but still, it bugged me because I walked away from that, adding my own sort of level of nuance to it, like wondering if pressed, how would I answer that question? So, let's imagine we're not just fishing for a magic bullet, that we want a really like a well thought out, nuanced answer to that question. So I think that the best way to sort of frame that question in a more nuanced way would be to say, considering all the things you've learned over the years to do with mental health, to do with depression, all the things you've read, all the theories, the techniques, etc., if you had to assign primacy to one of those things, which one would it be? And so the first thing you have to think about is, well, what's the criteria by which to judge whether or not advice is good advice? And I was thinking, right, well, for starters, it needs to be more than just sort of good in the abstract, doesn't it? Because otherwise, your advice to someone with depression would be cheer up. And, advice to someone with anxiety would be don't worry about it. So, like, the first thing is it needs to be it needs to be applicable, it needs to be doable. And so it's like, okay, doable advice. Doable advice, what sort of doable, pragmatic advice is going to be the best? And it was like, okay, well, I thought, well, maybe the best way to judge good advice would be sort of how many birds can it simultaneously kill with one stone, so to speak. Sort of go for the most multifaceted thing you can think of. And so, my response to that was hiking. I thought that's probably the most numerously tentacled approach. And I don't just mean just going for a walk. I mean like hobbyist hiking, like really getting into it. Because you join a club, you get all the gear, like these magazines. You can really immerse yourself in it. It's like say with the club, there's a social aspect to it. With the gear, you have to research it, and it's fun to maybe do the shopping and stylize yourself while you're like in the process of it. Like with the magazines, there's routes to research, and there's a lot of potential in it as well. You can go hiking anywhere in the world, so it enables you to sort of envision a future self and future scenarios that are sort of inspiring. It also, you're getting out in the fresh air. It's easier to master than running. It's sort of, it's available to more people than something like running. It's cardiovascular, it burns off cortisol, good scenery as well. You can maybe throw photography in there. So yeah, that seemed like a really well-rounded idea. But then I thought, well, like but the quality of advice needs to be sort of judged on more than its potential, like particularly in a field where adherence is low. And what I mean by that is, hiking is potentially a great idea, but it's sort of physical exercise, and physical exercise is, the adherence rate is notoriously low. And then when you throw in the fact that someone's dealing with depression in the first place, it's going to be even lower. So it's like, okay, well, maybe we have to sort of judge the advice on its likelihood of being used. Well, then it was like, well, I guess my alternative suggestion to that would be, no one's going to stick to exercise. So it would be something like, if you're going through depression, tell somebody, like discuss it with somebody. It's much easier to execute than getting into hiking. It's free. It requires less effort, less willpower. You get to offload some of what's on your mind. It's nice to confide in someone. There's human connection there. Too many people keep shit to themselves. And yeah, I think that sort of causes a pressure cooker effect, which makes things worse. But then that sort of left me dissatisfied as well, because it's like, the truth is, advice is sort of, it's subject to your circumstances and to your value system. So my supposed best piece of advice could quite literally be your worst possible advice, or just useless. Yeah, like, telling someone who's depressed because they're like the homebound due to like disability or illness or whatever, telling that person to try hiking, like what sort of shit is that? Yeah, or like saying, tell somebody, what if you haven't got anybody to talk to, or the only people you can talk to aren't trustworthy, but my little golden piece of advice that convinces you to sort of throw caution to the wind, and then you wind up exposing yourself to further upset because, you've just given capital or leverage to some twat that doesn't really care about you. So then it's like, right, well, it's got to be doable, it's got to be multifaceted, it's got to be easy to adhere to, and it's got to fit varying circumstances. So, yeah, this is going to sound like a cop-out, or it's going to sound like I'm sort of trying to be like quirky or witty or whatever, but it's my genuine answer. If I could give one piece of advice to someone suffering with depression, it would be, ignore any advice that pretends like one piece of advice is going to be the best piece of advice. And the reason I say that is because one of the best ways to understand depression is as a sort of a paralyzing sense of helplessness in response to the emergence of a set of problems of immeasurable complexity. Okay? Fucking sentence is immeasurably complex, but let me sort of explain what I mean. So like any piece of advice, right, whether it's sort of it's verbal, it's a blog post or a book, whatever. Any piece of advice that pretends like depression is reducible to a single cause or like a singular solution, they encourage us to sort of neglect the complexity of the situation in which we find ourselves. So just as an example, like if you become depressed because you lose your job, right? You aren't just suddenly presented with this singular immediate problem of having no job. Yeah, you're also presented with a certain amount of secondary problems and an infinite amount of potential problems that might arise as a result of the immediate problem, yeah, which you now have to try and account and control for. You know, where's the next job coming from? Who's going to pay the rent? You know, like the car you've got on finance, that's going to have to go back to the dealership. So how are the kids going to get to school? You know, a 10-minute drive is an hour's walk. So now you're going to have to get up earlier in the morning. Yeah? Couple that with like staying up late, looking for jobs. You're getting less sleep. You're more tired. Also now your partner's, she's out doing overtime to make up the difference. You know, how's that going to affect your relationship? You're already not spending enough time together. Now she's getting home late. She's tired. She's cranky. But she was the better cook. You can't cook. So now you're eating shitty ready meals, serving that shit to the kids. You're putting weight on, feeling like shit. The kids are sluggish. Yeah, so they're like struggling with their own work. The grades start slipping. And, you know, the family used to sit and eat dinner together. But now your wife gets home when it's like the kids' bedtime. So she's feeling guilty for not being there. And you're feeling guilty for losing your job and causing all this. The few job interviews you do get, you fuck it up because you're so stressed and tired. You know, you're supposed to be going on a family holiday this summer. That's out the window. You can't afford to go watch football with your mates anymore. So now your social life is falling apart. You've got no one to blow off steam with. So you start taking it out on your wife. She can't help but take this personal. You know, you've lost your job. She's out working her ass off to make up the difference, keeping a roof over your head. And now you're having a go at her. Where the fuck do you start with that mess? Meditation. That'll do it, will it? Yeah, a bit of exercise. You're having a fucking laugh. And then, yeah, when it doesn't work, like we've been led to believe that it would, then we feel defective because it worked for them. It worked for the person that wrote this blog article or whatever. Why didn't it work for me? What am I doing wrong? Then more guilt. And I think that sort of, that butterfly effect, that applies to any situation, whether it's, you know, job loss, breakup, death of a relative, midlife crisis, you name it. And if you're one of those people who doesn't even know why they're depressed in the first place, that's arguably an even bigger problem because that's like a tangled knot with no end sticking out. That's a really complex problem. That's an equation like blank times blank equals blank. Like, good luck figuring that shit out. Yeah? Again, maybe a nice herbal tea will fix you up, or maybe not. So, yeah, that'd be my answer. If I could give one piece of advice to someone suffering with depression, it would be ignore any advice that pretends like one piece of advice is going to be the best piece of advice. But that doesn't mean don't seek out singular pieces of advice or try them out. It just means, you know, the classic axiom, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, diversify your mental health portfolio, so to speak. Okay, which one should we do now? Oh, right, let's do something a bit more. We'll sort of split these up. So between like serious sort of bits of advice and then just sort of pissing about. So I don't quite know how to word this one because all I got was, I'm not sure whether to sort of reword it in a polite way. I'm going to say what the email said. The email said, do this on the podcast. That's all it said. Yeah, no please, no thank you, nothing. Do this on the podcast. And then I was given a link. So it's a link to a BuzzFeed article. And it's called 17 Would You Rather Questions That Are Impossible to Answer. Right, okay. So, like I said at the beginning, I haven't rehearsed this. This could be a bit of a chuckle. It could be insanely fucking boring. I haven't checked the list. I haven't had a scan through or anything like that. I'm not promising anything. We'll just have to see how this goes. So I'm just going to go through these one at a time. I've done this with my little boy with things he sort of plays Would You Rather. But I've got a feeling these are going to be a bit trickier. Okay, so it says, we recently asked members of the BuzzFeed community and Tumblr to tell us the hardest Would You Rather question they can think of. All right, 17 of the fuckers. All right, well, I'm sure some of them will be easier than others. Right, 1. Would you rather smell like poop and not know it, or constantly be smelling poop that nobody else can smell? Oh, well, I'd write, look, if I've got to go through my life smelling shit, right, or the rest of the world has to go smelling shit, it's on you lot. I'm not bothered. I mean, I know I'm going to sort of be I'm constantly smelling a poop, but I can't smell it. I can't go around smelling shit all the time. It does me head in when someone farts. I can't handle that. Got to leave the room. So no, I've got to be the one constantly smelling a poop. But that works, doesn't it? Even though I was going to say I'm going to be ostracised, but who cares? Like I'm unsociable anyway. So perfect, that works. Okay, number 2. Would you rather eat only roadkill for the rest of your life, or have everyone else in the world sound like Gilbert Gottfried? Hang on a minute. Just in case anyone's not familiar, I suppose I should sort of bring up Gilbert Gottfried and so you can hear what his voice sounds like. Hang on a minute, on YouTube here. Told you, nothing fancy here, folks. I'm not plugging it in and getting the channel actually going through the recorder or anything like that. Right, here we go. Gilbert Gottfried reads 50 Shades of Grey. So, see what
Audible.com presents 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, hang on a minute. Free advertising here from Audible.
Novel read by Gilbert Gottfried.
Right, get on with it.
My inner goddess has stopped dancing and is staring too, open-mouthed and drooling slightly.
Hear it the way it was meant to be.
Right, well, there you go.
Still he orders, and slowly he inserts his thumb inside me, rotating it around and around, stroking the front wall of my vagina.
Right, there we go. That's enough of that. So you know what Gilbert Gottfried sounds like, right? So would you rather eat only roadkill for the rest of your life, or have everyone else in the world sound like Gilbert Gottfried? Now, I was thinking roadkill's fine, right? As long as it's cooked right, we'll get used to it. But the problem with the Gilbert Gottfried thing is, well, like you just heard then, he was reading 50 Shades of Grey. So even when I have sex with Leanne, she's got to sound like him having an orgasm, and it's got to be roadkill. Just on that alone, like I'm not bothered if everyone else sounds like Gilbert Gottfried, but not the person I'm having sex with. I can't handle that. So, yeah, I'm going to eat roadkill for the rest of my life. Number 3, would you rather have Would you rather have taste buds on your butthole or poop through your mouth? Hang on a minute, I'm not sure how this works. So, because you're only going to need a shit when you need a shit. So you have a shit once a day, let's say, right? So whether you have a shit through your ass or through your mouth, you're going to taste it either way, because you've got taste buds on your arsehole and you've got taste buds in your trap. So that does, yeah. So all my choices there. I'm going to taste shit once a day anyway, but it's whether, do I taste shit the traditional way, or do I adopt this new novelty of shitting out my mouth? So I'll have taste buds on my arsehole, thanks. Number 4, would you rather always have to say everything on your mind, or never be able to speak again? Never be able to speak again. That's fine. Easy. Still communicate. You can write. Sign language. Fine. Number 5. Would you rather be itchy for the rest of your life, or be sticky for the rest of your life? I don't want to be... Being itchy is annoying, innit? Being sticky. I was thinking that'd only affect other people if they touch me. I'd just wear a jumpsuit, innit? And gloves and that. So... I'll be sticky. I don't want to be itchy. That'd be too annoying. Number 6. Would you rather eat a bowl of vomit or lick a hobo's foot? See, eating a bowl of vomit, that's going to take, 20 minutes? Well, I don't know how long it's going to take to eat a bowl of vomit. I mean, I'm guessing if you're sort of, chugging it down. But even then, you're going to be puking into the bowl of vomit and just refilling it back up again because you're eating vomit. So I'm licking an hobo's foot. It takes 2 seconds, done. Okay, number 7. Would you rather go through life with a perpetual cold sore on your mouth, or go through life with a booger hanging from your nose? See, I'm trying to think of a witty way out of this one. No, I can't have a cold sore in my mouth. Again, having a bogey hanging out my nose. That's more of a problem for you like that. It makes you feel uncomfortable. Why can't I pick it out? Well, I can't pick it out. That's not in the question, is it? I'll have a bugger hanging from my nose. I'm not having a cold sore. It's disgusting. Would you... number 8. Would you rather... Oh, what? Hang on a minute. That's number 8. What's number 9? Number 10. Hang on a minute, right? I thought these were sort of... number 1 was starting easier, and I thought we were sort of getting progressively harder, whereas number 8 is the worst. There's no beating that. I'm just scrolling through them all here. No. That's ridiculous. Right, I'm leaving that one. I don't know how I'm going to answer that one. Let's skip number 8. We're going to number 9. That's horrendous. Number 9. Would you rather smell like eggs when you burp or have a green cloud appear when you fart? Smell like eggs when you burp. You don't want the cloud giving you away, do you? Smell like eggs when you burp. I don't know, in either of them, you could just sort of, you could excuse yourself and go and have a burp or a fart. I'll go with smelling like eggs when I burp. That's a bit of a shit one, that, especially after number 7. Number 8, sorry. That's rubbish. Number 10. Would you rather have the hiccups for the rest of your life, or always feel you have to sneeze but not be able to? Oh, that's rough, that. I don't know. That's flip a coin shit, that. Have we got a coin? I haven't got a coin. Otherwise I would flip a coin. I don't know. Hiccups, I guess. Hiccups. Rubbish. 11. Would you rather only be able to listen to Nickelback songs or reread all 56 pages of iTunes terms and conditions every day for the rest of your life? I'll listen to Nickelback. That's fine. Not a problem. I mean, they're not the best, but rather that than the bleeding terms and conditions. Mind you saying that, I've never read the terms and conditions. Might be really good. Could be some entertaining stuff hidden in there, but I'm not banking on it. I'm going to go with Nickelback. Number 12. Would you rather live like a king but have no friends or family, or be homeless with your friends and family? See, it's the family bit that's in there throwing it out. Like, live like a king and have no friends? Fine. But no, I'm not losing my family for nothing. So I'd rather be homeless with my family and friends. Would you rather eat a potato and feel its pain, or be a potato? Oh, well, be a potato? I don't even know what that means. Just, so I am a potato and I'm sort of not sentient, in which case I wouldn't care. But, you know, I've only got, it says eat a potato, singular. I've got to eat one potato and feel its pain. I'll do that. Would you rather, number 14, would you rather have vaginas for ears or have penises for fingers? I sat here looking at my hands. I've got ugly hands, me. I don't suppose you'd notice whether I had penises for fingers. Vaginas for ears would be quite good, wouldn't it? Because I sort of rub my ears when I'm stressed. So, I mean, that'd really loosen me up. And do they still work? I mean, is it a vagina that still can hear stuff, or am I deaf now? Penises for fingers, that's not good, that, is it? You can't, you know, every time you go to pay for something, or like sort of pat your kid on the head, well done for doing something, just no. I've got to have vaginas for ears, innit? Number 15, would you rather have sex with a goat and no one would know, or not have sex with a goat but have everyone think you did? No, I can't even believe I'm thinking about this. I'd rather not have sex with a goat but have everyone think I did, because at least my integrity is intact. I know you idiots can think what you want. I'm not bothered, right? I probably would be bothered. It'd be embarrassing, but I mean, I don't even know how I'm going to say I have to have sex with a goat. You're going to fling me in the room with it. Here, have sex with this goat, right? And no one will ever know. But if you don't have sex with a goat, we're going to tell everyone you did. I've got to get it up for the goat. I don't know how I'm going to do that. So that's awkward, that. I'm not having sex with no goat. No, I'm not having sex with a goat. You idiots can think what you want. Bollocks to you. 16, would you rather... Oh, Jesus. Oh. Would you rather pry off your thumbnail with a fork? Jesus. Or put a toothpick under your big toenail and kick a wall? Oh, fucking, I hate I hate things like this. Anything to do with fingernails. And... pry it up. No, it's like the rip the band-aid off theory, I think. I've got to put the toothpick under the big toenail and kick a wall and get it over and done with quick. I can't pry my thumbnail off with a fork. No. That's horrendous. Right. It's still not as bad as number 8, which we're going to get to. 17. Would you rather know when you're going to die or know how you're going to die? Oh, wow. That's a good question. Would you rather know when you're going to die or know how you're going to die? I think it's got to be when, hasn't it? If you knew how you were going to die, but you didn't know when, you knew it was going to be cancer, but you didn't know when, you'd just spend your entire life waiting for it, at least without sort of that's a prognosis, isn't it? Knowing how you're going to die with sort of an indeterminate amount of time. And the whole thing about, it takes away that sort of, we all go through life with the delusion that we're going to live forever. Dying is something other people do. We never quite conceive of ourselves going through that process until we get given that negative prognosis. And so, yeah, we live in ignorance to an extent. Knowing when you're going to die, it doesn't matter. I don't suppose it matters so much how you can prepare for it. I've got a certain amount of time to get a certain amount of things done. You would end up sort of living your life in a panicky sense, I guess. You would always have that. The date would always be on your mind. It'd always sort of be out there. But I still think that's better than knowing how you're going to die, but it being an indeterminate amount of time. It's like there's utility to knowing when. I don't think there's any utility to knowing how. So I'm going to go with when. I'd rather know when I was going to die. That's a very serious answer. It's supposed to be funny, this bit. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Number 8. This is fucking horrendous, this, right? I don't know how I'm going to answer this. For fuck's sake. Would you rather watch your parents have sex every day for the rest of your life or join in once to make it stop? Oh, Jesus. Would you rather watch your parents have sex every day for the rest of your life or join in once to make it stop? Join in? Well, here's the thing, it's like, well, join in. Oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. But then it's like, well, your other option is to just sit there watching them bashing away for the rest of your life. Join in? What does that mean? Like, what do I have to do to join in? Because I suppose there's different ways, right? There's joining in like getting your kit off and sandwiching yourself between the two of them. Or there's joining in the sense of, like, I suppose, like if someone's got like an exhibitionist fetish, like they like being watched or whatever, then, if you were sort of, if you're snapping away with a camera, you're, in a sense, you're joining in the scenario. Do you know what I mean? So would that count? Join in by... Oh, taking pictures. Is there not another way? What other way could I do it? Oh God, I don't know. But let's say that. Let's say I get away with, maybe you could just stroke the skin with a fingertip. Is that joining in? oh God, or what? I mean, but watching them every day for the rest of your life. But saying that, it can't be every day for the rest of your life because they're older than me for a start. So, but then again, it depends. You know, if you got to stick to the question, say you know, I'm 35. My parents are in the mid-70s. If I live till I'm 80, and just by virtue of this question, I have to watch them every day for the rest of my life. Do I have to like watch their corpses still inside one another after they've perished? But one of them's going to perish first, so then the other one has to bash. Like the other one has to bash the dead one while they're still alive, and you have to watch. Or are they sort of forced to live forever by this question? So then, like, by the time I'm 80, they're, 150, still going at it? Oh, look, if I have to join in, like, a penetration, right? I have to penetrate one of my parents. I'm not doing it. I'd rather watch for the rest of my life, even if we're going to live till they're 150. But if I can get away with just sort of tickling one of them with a feather duster, I'll do that and get it over and done with. I don't know. I give up. I quit. I've had enough. I'm not doing that one. I surrender. Next question. Okay, about 2 years ago, I graduated from a top university in my country, but since then, I've been rejected from all jobs related to my degree. So I've been working crap minimum wage jobs, and it's absolutely disheartening. It hurts to see my fellow peers succeed while I fail, so I guess what I'm asking is, how do you swallow your pride when you are seen as a failure by both your family and society? Okay, so I think there's a lot of elements to this question that are sort of universally applicable. I think a lot of people can relate to a lot of the things that are going on here, even though there's certain things that are just sort of unique to your situation. I think this is overall it's a universal problem. So I've really spent time sort of picking this to pieces, this one. Okay, so let's sort of pass it out as we go. Okay, so 2 years ago, graduated from a top university in my country. Okay, so firstly, I don't know what country you're in. Okay, like most of my audience is it's in the US actually. And then it's the UK, Canada, Australia, in that order. But I think in all those countries, I think in the graduation age, something about like 21, 22, something like that. So if you graduated 2 years ago, you're anything between, 23, 25? So, yeah, let's go with the upper estimate, the conservative estimate. Let's guess you're 25. So I know you might already feel like you're cracking on. Yeah, I did when I was 25. And, you know, because we sort of live in a culture now where if you haven't made it, quote unquote, by the time you're 30, you're a fucking failure and you're never going to do anything with your life. But you're 25, yeah? You've got maybe 50, 60, 70 years of life in front of you, okay? You've got plenty of time to fix this, first and foremost. You know, I think a couple of examples of people that sort of defy the age limits on things. I think like Stan Lee, the creator of fucking every comic book character ever. I think he was in like his late 30s, early 40s when he drew his first comic. Vera Wang, fashion designer. She didn't start getting into fashion until she was 40. Samuel L. Jackson. He was just like a bit part actor until he was about 45 or something like that. You know, then famously you've got like Colonel Sanders, KFC, he started that in his 60s. Ray Kroc, the guy who started franchising McDonald's, he was in his 50s when he did that. And I'm not really a fan of using famous examples like that because it sort of inadvertently contains the idea that success equals like fame or vast amounts of wealth or whatever. But I think I cite those examples in sort of a much less sort of cheesy inspirational sense. I think they just sort of, I think they serve as good examples that you know, oftentimes these age limits are sort of the self-imposed. You know, I'm not denying the existence of like age-based discrimination in hiring. I'm not denying that the, you know, sometimes implicit societal prejudice when it comes to age. But I just think when it comes to things like talent, hard work, or just a good idea, those things trump age every time. You know, that's the benefit. That's the benefit of living in a market economy. Like the cream rises to the top, or it tends to. But even so, 25, Jesus. I mean, let me tell you something. If I could be 25 again, yeah, get the past 10 years back, but I had to start right back from zero, and I mean zero, like no money, no contacts. Like, even if I was sort of living in social housing, no furniture, nothing, would I take it? Fucking damn right I would. Like, that's how valuable time is. And you've got it. You've got time on your side. You're 25, yeah? And I'm saying that as someone who's 35. Ask someone who's fucking 85 what they'd give to be 25 again. The other thing is, as well, graduated from a top university in the country. Top university, graduated from a top university in my country. Now, I mean, if that doesn't tell you that you've got the smarts and the potential to figure this situation out, you know, I don't know what will. I mean, you really need to sort of appreciate that achievement that you know that you've earned and the potential in that. Okay. Next bit. Since then, I've been rejected from all jobs related to my degree. Now, this isn't going to be sort of my main answer to this question. It's just something to consider, and it's that I'm sensing a sort of I'm sensing defeat. There seems like defeat implicit in that. So the first question to sort of ask yourself is, how hard have you tried? Yeah. I'm not saying this is what you did, okay, but you know, just for people that this might apply to. But some people have a tendency to get disheartened and give up very quickly. Like I did this with my writing. You know, I wrote a screenplay when I was 21, and I got something like, I think it was just something like 2 refusals, and then I just gave up. And I didn't just give up on that screenplay. I gave up on writing altogether. Yeah. So, you know, your first thing to do is, when you say I've been rejected from all jobs related to my degree, is just question how hard you've tried. Have you really pushed it? Maybe you have, but if you haven't, you know, your first option might be to sort of really hit it hard and make a weekend of it. You know, sit down and just sort of go ape shit, flinging out your CV to as many jobs as possible. And also, I guess, you know, depending on how determined you are to actually carve out a career in this particular area, whatever it is, you know, you've chosen whatever subject to study. I'm assuming you're into it. Maybe you're really passionate about it. Maybe you're not. But, you know, assuming you are, if it is whatever your chosen degree was, if it really is something you want to do, then maybe consider casting a wider net as well. You know, maybe consider applying for jobs in a different town. You know, if you are willing to sort of move for your career, then, you know, that increases the amount of jobs that you can apply for. You know, obviously, you know, in one town there's a limited amount of jobs. If you're willing to move around the country, you can cast a wider net. Also, I guess this would sort of be a roundabout way of, like, you know, you're mentioning sort of you being around the people that you graduated with, your peers, sort of comparing yourself to them is causing you anguish. And so, you know, if you considered moving to a different place, you'd be starting afresh with a clean slate. You know, no one knows you, no one's looking at you saying, oh, you know, look at Dave stuck working at McDonald's or whatever. You know, and maybe that is happening. You know, people do talk shit. Or maybe you're just being paranoid. You know, another thing to consider is people have got their own shit to worry about. You know, everyone's a star in their own movie. You're just an extra. You know, people aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. Just something to think about. Okay, so those things said, let's assume you really have like exhausted your options. Yeah, you've applied for as many jobs as possible. There's just nothing going. Or also that you can't move to a new area for whatever reason. Let me deal with like the last part of your question first, and then we'll deal with the middle bit. So the last part of your question is, So I guess what I'm asking is, how do you swallow your pride when you're seen as a failure by both your family and society? That's not what you're asking me. I don't believe it is. Or if it is, you shouldn't be. Swallowing your pride, quote unquote, that means that's deciding to do something even though it makes you feel embarrassed or ashamed. And if you're working what you consider crap minimum wage jobs, you've already swallowed your pride. You know, if you hadn't, you wouldn't be working these crap jobs. You'd be sat at home feeling fucking sorry for yourself and sponging off the benefit system. And you haven't done that. And that shows character in itself. Yeah? So it sounds to me more like you're sort of looking for permission to give up. You know, like feels like I'm in a shitty situation. I can't see a way out of it. So how do I just sort of get over my unrealistic ambitions and just be happy with what I've got? And my answer to that would be, you don't have to do that. But again, I'll get to that in a minute. As for the bit about being seen as a failure by your family and society, I can't comment on like the family situation. Like your family seeing you as a failure, you know, maybe they don't. Maybe you're sort of imposing that view on them. You know, I was certainly guilty of doing that after my business folded. But you know, I later found out my family don't care about like material success. They care that I'm happy and I'm healthy. You know, but I don't know. Maybe you come from a family or a culture where like material or career success really does matter to your family. In which case, I don't know what to say about that. I think maybe to ask them would be a good start. And don't frame it like, do you think I'm a failure? You know, they're probably going to say no out of politeness, or maybe they won't. But ask them something like, how do you guys feel about where I'm at now, like career wise? Just sort of trying to open a dialogue with them, and you know, actually get some feedback and not just assume what they're thinking. Like I say, not just to it's not just to pander to what they want. It's just to see if you're sort of putting yourself under sort of undue pressure. As for feeling societal pressure, yeah, that's tough. I mean, you know, the idea that you can sort of sidestep societal pressure is ridiculous. Like this whole "don't give a fuck what anyone thinks" message that all these sort of entrepreneurs and self-help gurus tend to peddle it's ridiculous. Yeah. I know it makes you sound very independent and rebellious talking about how much you don't give a fuck, but it's bollocks. Yeah, I always find it interesting that these people, these I don't give a fuck people, they seem to go to great lengths to let everyone else know how much they don't give a fuck. Yeah, so yeah, I think the first thing is you've just got to sort of cut yourself some slack for feeling societal pressure. Self-esteem's overrated. Yeah, we're human beings are social beings. It's hardwired into us. It's nice to be liked. It's nice to be accepted. It's nice to impress people. It's nice to receive validation. But I'd say, you know, even if you can't sidestep societal pressure, you can certainly dial it down. And I think one way of doing that is realizing that everyone's in the same boat. You know, it's not like, you know, in this country, what is it, 60 million people live here or something. You know, if you're in the UK, it's not like 60 million people all looking at you. It's 60 million people looking at each other. You know, you're complicit in this. You know, people worry about what you think of them as much as you worry about what they think about you. And you judge people as well. You know, you hold people to certain standards just by mere virtue of the fact that you consider your peers more successful than you and yourself a failure. You're holding them to a certain standard. You know, and if one of those people lost their job and wound up working wherever you work, then by your standards, the standards you judge yourself by, that person's now a failure. So again, we're all in it together in that sense. But also just come back to the fact of, you know, realizing that you and your life are not as fascinating to everyone as you might like to think, you know, and you can sort of either feel insulted by that or liberated by it. Also, I think it's worthwhile recognising just how much of a fucking bottomless pit comparing yourself to other people is. Like, you're currently working a crappy job and comparing yourself to your friends who are doing a job that you feel is better than yours. But the chances are your friends are sort of comparing themselves, well, to each other, to the people they work with, but like their supervisors as well. But it carries on. The ball keeps rolling. So like the supervisors, they'll be comparing themselves to the managers. The managers, they'll be comparing themselves to the CEOs. And then the CEOs of that company, they'll be comparing themselves to the CEOs of bigger companies. Those CEOs will be comparing themselves to like the FTSE 500 company CEOs. And then the FTSE 500 company CEOs, they'll be comparing themselves to the FTSE 100 company CEOs. And then those fucking CEOs, they'll be comparing themselves to the likes of like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and, you know, like all the richest people in the world. And the funny thing is, I'm willing to bet as well, I'm willing to bet on it that those richest people in the world, I reckon they're probably looking around other people around them who haven't got as much money or as much success as them. And they're thinking like, oh, you know, I wish I was as tall as him, or I wish I was as pretty as she is, or I wish I could paint as well as that guy, or I wish my family were as close as her family is, and on and on and on. So, yeah, comparing yourself to people, it's a losing game. I think a much better strategy is to compare yourself to yourself. And what I mean by that isn't to compare yourself like where you are now with where you'd like to be, because every time you do that, it's just going to result in disappointment, because the future ideal self, it's constantly evolving. Every time you take a step forward, it takes a step back further away from you. So yeah, I think a better strategy for self-comparison is compare where you are now with where you were yesterday. Like, am I a better person today than I was yesterday? Am I closer to my goals today than I was yesterday? And as long as, like, every day you're getting up off your ass, taking action, there's no reason why you shouldn't be in a position where every morning you wake up and you're quite literally, like, materially, intellectually, conceptually, every morning you're a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. And if that is the case, then every day is a victory. Every day you can wake up and feel proud of yourself for making progress and give yourself a pat on the back and keep moving forward. Now, that's all sort of philosophical advice. Let's get into something a bit more pragmatic. Okay. So I'm not going to give you the usual sort of follow your dreams, don't let anybody get you down bullshit, because it's just vacuous, isn't it? And for all I know, like, maybe your dreams might be ridiculous, just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you're actually any good at it. You only have to look at TV programs like X Factor, American Idol, Britain's Got Talent to see evidence of that. And it's not just untalented people who like fail to achieve the dreams. Even talented people, really talented people, sometimes they sort of spend their whole lives chasing a dream that never pans out. We only ever sort of see the success stories like the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Justin Timberlakes, or the David Beckhams, but you never hear about the thousands, the tens of thousands, the millions of people who spend life chasing the dreams and then fail to achieve them. So I'm not saying you shouldn't chase your dreams, or I'm not saying you shouldn't do what you're passionate about. That's up to you. I'm just saying, as far as me offering you any sort of pragmatic advice, it'd be irresponsible of me to recommend that you chase your dreams without first assessing whether or not you've actually got a realistic chance of achieving them. So, what's the alternative? So, again, I don't know what you do for a living. I don't know what this crappy dead end job is. But let's for sake of argument, let's pretend that you're let's pretend like you're stacking shelves at a supermarket. Okay, we don't need to go like super demeaning or anything like, cleaning toilets with your bare hands or anything. So yeah, let's say like stacking shelves in a supermarket. Now, I've never worked in a supermarket, but like from what I gather, I go to the same supermarket all the time. It looks like the people who stack shelves get given a particular section, like a certain set of products and tasks to specialise in. But let me just say, I think what I'm about to say sort of applies to any dead end job. Okay, not just supermarkets or whatever. I think you can apply this to anything. So let's imagine you work in the beer, wines, and spirits aisle, and So there's two ways you can approach this task. The first way is you can turn up for work, you clock in, you stack and replenish the shelves. You do it well enough to avoid getting fired, to ensure you receive a paycheck, and then at 5, 6 o'clock or whatever, you go back home. That's it. You've done your job. And let's not make it super depressing. In fact, let's imagine you actually, you have a couple of colleagues there that you have a laugh with. There's some employee benefits. It's a fairly nice place to work. It's not too physically or mentally demanding or anything like that. Okay, because I'd hazard a guess that that's probably the situation for maybe 80-90% of people that are in those kind of jobs. And actually, let me add a caveat here. If you're working in a dead end job for like a local newsagent's around the corner, get the fuck out of there. I'd say, because this isn't going to work for that kind of small operation. I think, yeah, for this advice that I've got that I'd follow, you need to get yourself to somewhere you need to get yourself into a corporation, a big organisation, like Tesco, McDonald's, Walmart, that sort of thing. And I say go get a job there casually, because one of the benefits of being stuck at the bottom of the ladder is there's plenty of room for manoeuvre, and like an employee turnaround in those kind of jobs is quite high. So there's plenty of opportunity to get jobs at places like those. So yeah, so that's the only caveat. But I think this works for everything else. So I think people often mislabel jobs like McDonald's or Tesco or whatever as quote unquote dead end jobs, when in truth, organizations like McDonald's, there's a huge ladder to be climbed. There's a direct line between the guy mopping the floors and the CEO. And also here's the thing about like dead end jobs and menial labour. Chances are in those jobs you're surrounded by people who aren't super enthused about being there either. And this in itself is an opportunity, because in an environment like that, where everyone's a bit despondent, it's easier to stand out. So if I was you, here's what I'd do. I'd say, I'm 25 years old, okay? I'm going to spend the next 5 years, at least, getting up every day and outworking every single one of these motherfuckers that I work with. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to have my uniform washed and ironed. I'm going to look the part. I'm going to get there bright and early. I'm not stumbling in there at 5 past looking like shit with the creased uniforms and bags under my eyes. Yeah, I'm putting the effort in, and it's an hard sell, this idea. I think people's initial reaction is like, why should I go the extra mile for a shit job that I don't enjoy? And it's like, because it's your life, motherfucker. Yeah, you're going to spend 40 hours a week there regardless. Yeah, and so you can either carry out your tasks reluctantly and do an half-assed job with a face like a slapped ass, or you can take pride in your work, and not for the sake of your company either, or your boss, but for your sake, because you're going to spend the time there anyway, so you might as well spend the time there well, yeah? And like the immediate benefits to taking this sort of attitude, firstly, is, just things like job security. When it comes time for like layoffs, you're much less likely to find yourself on the chopping block, because you're more valuable than the other people there. You won't be being nagged by your boss either. You won't be facing customer complaints. You can go home every night sort of assured that you've done a good job. There's nothing to worry about when you go back into work tomorrow. Just basic shit, basic stress reduction. So yeah, there's your basic commitment. Get up, show up, look the part, do the work, and do it fucking properly. But let's take it one step further. So, what did we say? Oh, yeah. So, like, let's say you're working on the wines and spirits aisle. So, rather than just like stack the shelves at the right time and have like a vague sense of where things go, which is what most shelf stackers do, why not actually throw yourself into it and actually learn about wines and beers and spirits, that and like all the different types? Maybe go on a course, wine tasting, Learn what wines go with what foods and like the different regions that they come from, all that shit, like really throw yourself into it. And it's, I know that sounds ridiculous for like a supermarket setting, but just think about it, the potential within that. I mean, like we all know this scenario where in a supermarket, you can't find the product you're looking for, and you ask a guy stacking the shelves there where something is. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're just as fucking useless as you. But let's imagine, let's imagine you go into the wine aisle at Tesco. You don't know very much about wines. You ask the person there, excuse me, could you show me where like the Chardonnay wines are? And a regular shelf stacker, they're just going to sort of point to them and grunt like, it's all them over there. And that's it, right? That's your customer service. That's your experience with that person. But now imagine a different scenario where the guys are stacking the shelves and you say, excuse me, could you show me where the Chardonnays are? And he says, oh yeah, he politely, speaks politely, walks you to where they are, and he says, it's all these here. What kind were you looking for? And you're like, I don't know, I'm having a dinner party with friends, so I just, like the sound of Chardonnay. And he's like, oh, well, what are you cooking? Oh, I'm cooking chicken, and so I believe like Chardonnay is supposed to be good with chicken. And he's like, oh, well, it can be. It depends on what sauce you're making, what sauce you're making with the chicken. And then you tell him, and then he starts like making all these suggestions about, what goes well with this particular sauce. And, maybe you like this one's quite oaky, or this one's got like citrus undertones or whatever. If you're doing that, you're not just the fucking shelf stacker there. You're utilising your time differently. You treat every customer interaction like it matters, instead of just being a fucking mumbling zombie who wants to like just kill time and go home. You're going to stand out. If you turn out to be the reason that someone has an amazing dinner party, it's only going to be so long before somebody calls your boss up and says, that guy in the wine aisle is fucking amazing. Like, you want to think about promoting him. And I know people are probably listening to this and thinking, well, what if I'm stuck on the fucking dog food aisle? And again, I know it sounds daft, but your choices are the same. You can show up to work and stack the dog food aisle with a face like a slapped ass and do it reluctantly. Or again, you can outwork every other fucking shelf stacker in there. Make your aisle immaculate. It's clean, it's neat, it's tidy. You know where everything is. Yeah, you master the art of customer service. You be personable. You learn the questions that people tend to ask. You find the answers to them. Fucking dogs with allergies, or what's the best food for them, or is there any difference between the cheap and the expensive stuff, and what is the difference, and what about this breed, what about that breed? Like, know your shit, yeah. But also, I'd say, not just take that sort of passive approach where you be really good with your customer service and just hope that somebody compliments you to the boss and you might get a promotion out of it. But be proactive in climbing the ladder. Don't just sit there and wait for the promotion to come based on performance. Like, if your company has conferences and meetings or whatever, ask for an invitation, turn up to shit. Yeah, be ballsy. Like, ask for meetings with people higher up the ladder. Ask for 10 minutes with the CEO or whoever, just say you want to just sit down, ask them a few questions and say, like, I love this company, I enjoy my job, but I'm hungry, I'm ambitious, what do I need to do to get where you are? And, maybe you learn enough about wines that you learn about like a trend being set in Asia or whatever. And, you write the CEO an email and say, dude, my name's James or whatever. I work in the wine aisle at the Manchester branch. There's this new wine that everyone's going crazy about in Asia. Maybe you guys should think about stocking it. Try and build up your contacts, make connections with people, because no one else is doing that shit. No one else in Tesco or McDonald's, they're not doing that, yeah? And that's the way to get noticed. And if you don't get noticed, if things aren't moving quick enough, then at least you've cultivated certain skills and a certain knowledge set, so that maybe you can start thinking about setting up your own wine business or your own dog food business or whatever, based on everything you've taught yourself. And yeah, just because you're not in your dream job doesn't mean your time there doesn't matter. And it certainly doesn't mean that there's no room for opportunity. Let me tell you something. I was 25 when I lost my business. Like 10 years I spent fucking flitting about from one thing to another, trying to redeem myself, starting businesses, all these fucking stupid airbrained ideas and pipe dreams. And I wasted a lot of time. And if I could go back and do it all again, I'd done exactly what we've just talked about. And like you said, I'd have swallowed my pride. I'd have got myself a job at somewhere, quote unquote, shit, like McDonald's or Tesco. And I'd have spent the next 10 years outworking every fucking person in there. And I guarantee that by now, 10 years later, I'd be fucking two-thirds of the way up the ladder. And, you know, I could go out there and do that now, and I'd be 45 by the time I finished it. But, you know, that option's available to you. You can go out there and do that now, and you're 25 years old, and by the time you're 35, you know, Christ knows where you'll be with that attitude if you can apply it. And like you say, you graduated from one of the top universities in your country. You've got the smarts. You've obviously got the work ethic. Just apply it. Apply it. You know, what's that saying? You know, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. You know, so don't be that person who, just because you feel disheartened, it makes you become lazy and uninspired. Like, just carry on regardless. The work ethic and the intelligence that you applied to graduating that university, carry that shit with you and apply it to everything you do. And, you know, I think it's not a case of like with something like being in a band or being a footballer, where you just, you know, you're waiting for that lucky break. I don't think it works like that in the market system. Like I said before, the cream rises to the top, and when you're one of those people that just outworks everybody else, you don't have to wait on somebody to put you on. You know, you put yourself on, and people can't resist but give you the promotions that you deserve, because it makes sense for them. It makes sense for the people above you to promote you because you make more money for them. So, yeah, that's my advice on that front. Okay, on a very similar note, this one, that's why I've sort of combined these two. I left school without any qualifications, and I've spent the past 10 years jumping from dead-end job to dead-end job. I love the idea of starting a business, but other than watching football and playing video games, I don't really have any interests or hobbies. How do I find my passion and turn it into a business? Okay, so as you've just seen, we've already sort of touched on a couple of facets of this question, but I just want to hone in on a couple of things specifically. And it's this concept of finding your passion. So, you know, the bog standard sort of self-help guru answer would be to say something like, you know, thrust yourself into one of those two pastimes. You know, if you like football, you like playing video games, like try and make a business out of that. Like make a YouTube channel for gaming, or, you know, start blogging about football, or, you know, some bullshit like that. I've got a different take, and my take on that is fuck finding your passion. Okay, especially if you, like you are, you're starting from scratch. You haven't got a clue what you're into, right? The idea that we've got some sort of fucking inbuilt passion or talent inside us just sort of waiting to be unearthed, I think it's bullshit. I don't believe it, okay? Another common answer to this question is to, you know, go out and try a load of different things until you find your passion. And it's like, okay, let's assume that there is a passion out there waiting to be discovered, something that just suits you down to a T, right? There's fucking thousands, hundreds of thousands of hobbies and pastimes, yeah? What if it turns out that your God-given talent turns out to be something like sculpting elephant heads from coconut shells, yeah? How long do you have to spend piss fighting about buying Groupon experiences before you discover that fucker, right? It's not going to happen, is it? So I think a much better approach is to just pick a business idea. Pick a business idea that's got market potential and that just sort of vaguely resembles something that you're at least partially interested in, and then just fucking do it. Yeah? Don't focus on being passionate about something. Focus on being the best at something. Learn to enjoy the process of mastery. Okay? Which I know sounds a bit sort of dry and uninspiring, but it's like, well, what are your other options? Yeah, you can either continue to do nothing, yeah, sit back and wait for to sort of stumble across something, or you can embark on this sort of airy-fairy idea of discovering your passion with no sense of direction whatsoever, or any idea if or when you're even ever going to fucking figure it out. Yeah? So the reason I give this advice is because this is what I've done. Okay? After I lost my business, I just jumped from one thing to another. You know, did selling books on eBay. I tried starting like a Gawker style blog in Manchester. I was selling like funny T-shirts, just all sorts of bullshit. Just trying to find something I was passionate about, and getting nowhere because I was sort of half interested in these things and hoping that would be enough to sort of fuel it. You know, but I wasn't willing to do the hard work. I just thought this sort of this little bit of interest I had in these things would fuel it and make it go somewhere, which is just ridiculous. But in fact, the thing is, I know what I'm passionate about. Yeah, for me, it's writing. I love writing fiction. That's my thing. Like that's been my thing since I was like 19, 20 years old. If I could create my ideal life, it would be sitting at home in a little office, just writing novels, yeah? But being a writer, it's like buying a fucking lottery ticket, especially nowadays. Everyone's a fucking writer nowadays. And like the chances of earning a living at it are minuscule. You know, I don't even know if I'm any good. You know, I could be shit for all I know. And so the reason I'm doing this podcast, it's not because I'm passionate about podcasting or YouTube. You know, I'm not even passionate about mental health. But what I did is I just chose something that I felt like it's at least got some potential to turn into a proper business. And that's it. And I got to work on it. You know, I started learning about podcasting and sound recording and editing and how to build a website and interviewing. And I was shit when I started out. Like, you know, every episode took about like 20 hours to put together. I had 0 listeners. And yeah, and like 18 months later, I'm, you know, finally starting to gain traction. You know, I'm getting a name for myself. I've got some subscribers. My listeners are sort of in the thousands now. You know, people are inviting me to conferences. I've got agents contacting me to try and like get clients on my show. And yeah, little bits of money and opportunity are starting to trickle in. But none of that's the result of passion. Yeah. I've just been getting my head down and working. Now, to be fair, like this was always sort of more intended as a way to keep myself busy than to build a business, which is I think why I went for something which is just, you know, it's got some potential to turn into a business. It wasn't my number one priority. But I think if you apply this attitude, this approach to a business with a clear profit motive, you know, something like importing products from China, you know, and selling stuff on eBay or Amazon or whatever, that kind of thing, you know, if you drop the passion bullshit and focus on just doing the work with a clear profit motive, you know, you could really do some fucking damage with that. And then, you know, then when the money starts coming in, you know, you get yourself financially stable, then you can, you know, spend all the time you want then piss farting about trying to find your passion. But yeah, I really do believe it in that advice. I mean, I think, like I say, if you've got a passion and you're dead set on it, and you know, regardless of whether, you know, anyone thinks you're talented, I'm not going to tell you not to follow your dreams or anything like that. If you've got a passion, fine, you know, you do what you want with it. But certainly for these people that are like, well, you know, I'm 20, 30, 40 years old, I still haven't found my passion. How do I find my passion? I just think you're asking the wrong question. I just think, yeah, a better approach is pick something with the highest amount of potential that you can see in it. And, you know, as long as it sort of vaguely resembles something that you're interested in, you know, there's enough there for you to apply yourself and make something and to make something of it just through sheer hard work. Again, just Outwork every other motherfucker. Make that your passion. Make hard work your passion. Make mastery your passion. So yeah. Right, okay, let's close this up. But we're not going to close serious. We've done enough serious, so back to something a bit more lighthearted. And so, yeah, this one is a request from someone that I actually correspond with on a fairly regular basis. It's, what's the most disgusting joke you've ever heard? And me being sort of picky and meticulous as I usually am, I've taken this question very seriously, and I've not been able to come up with a singular answer. I've got two answers, and I don't know which one is more disgusting. And we're gonna have to be careful here. I don't want to offend anybody, but this sort of disgust humour, I am a fan of it. I've got to say, I do like a punchline that makes me want to heave. So I'm gonna finish out with these two jokes, and I'll let you decide which one is the most disgusting. Okay, so first one is okay. So there's an old woman, Agnes or whatever, call her Agnes. She's like 97 years old. She's living in an old people's home. And she's bored. She's been there for ages, been there for years. She's sick of playing cards. She's sick of like sitting in the common room watching TV. She's bored of sewing, all that sort of thing. She wants a bit of excitement. And she's thinking about it, and she realises it's been like 30 years since she last had sex. And she's thinking, that might be interesting. So the room next door to her is a guy called Jeff. Right, she talks to Jeff, they get on, and he's only 83, bit of a toy boy, yeah? So she invites him round to her room. He goes round, they have a cup of tea together, watch a bit of Countdown, what have you. And, she comes straight out with it, too old for messing about. And she says, Jeff, I'm bored, right? I'm sick of the common room, I'm sick of sewing, sick of playing cards, I need a bit of excitement. It's been 30 years since I last had sex, and I want you to sort me out. And he's like, oh, God, he's like, well, Agnes, that'd be amazing. Like, I'd love to. I mean, it's been a long time for me, probably about the same amount of time for me. He says, but there's one problem. He says, I'm 83. The plumbing doesn't work the way it used to, so I can't get it up anymore. And Agnes is like, well, don't worry about it, Jeff. You can just use your mouth. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And Jeff's like, oh, all right then, fine. I'll have a crack at that. So anyway, she gets on the bed. She takes her bloomers off. Right, spreads her legs. Jeff gets in there, right? He's down there for maybe 10 seconds, and then he's like, ugh! Starts heaving. And Agnes is like, are you okay, Jeff? He's like, I'm fine, it's fine. Carries on. A couple of seconds later, ugh! She's like, Jeff, what's going on? He's like, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And carries on, gets back in there. A couple of seconds later, he's like, oh, he says, I'm sorry, Agnes. I can't do it. I can't do that. I don't mean to be rude, but your vagina absolutely reeks. It smells like a decomposing skunk down there. And Agnes is like, oh God, oh Jeff, I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed. She says, that's my arthritis, that. And Jeff says, your arthritis? He says, you can't get arthritis in your vagina. And even if you could, it wouldn't make it smell that bad. She says, no, Jeff, the arthritis is in my shoulder. I've not been able to wipe my ass for the past 12 months. All right, so that's one. that's your first one. Second one, I think this second one's probably the worst, but again, to each their own. You'll have to let me know. So, there's a guy getting drunk in a bar, right, and his mobile phone keeps ringing. And he's trying to ignore it, but it keeps ringing and ringing and ringing. And he's like, oh, bollocks to this. I'm going home. He sinks his pint, slams it down on the table, starts walking off. And the barman's like, hang on a minute, what's up? He says, oh, it's the wife. She wants me home. And the barman's like, geez, it's only 7 o'clock. And the guy's like, I know, but if I don't go home and watch Emmerdale with her, I'll never hear the end of it. And the barman's like, sit down. Come here. Says, don't worry about it. So I'm going to give you a piece of advice here. Tell this to all the blokes here. It's golden, this. Says, here's what you do. Says, you stay and drink as much as you want. He says, in fact, for this to work, you need to leave it late enough so that she'll be asleep by the time you get back home. He says, and then when you get back home, all you have to do is sneak in the house as quiet as possible, right? Get upstairs. He says, and then without waking her up, he says, you just run in the bedroom, jump under the covers, and then start going down on her, yeah? And he says, but don't half-arse it, yeah? He says, you can't use just the tip of the tongue. He says, you need to get your face in there like a dog eating an ice cream, yeah? He says, by the time you've finished, she'll have had that many orgasms, right? She'll forget she was even angry, right? So the guy's like, that's a pretty good idea, that. He's like, all right then, I'll have another lager. In fact, give us a pitcher and a packet of peanuts, yeah? Anyway, so he stays there all night drinking, stumbles out of there at like 4 o'clock in the morning. He gets home, and he's like, right, hang on a minute. Pissed out of his head. Like, right, okay. Gotta be quiet as possible, sneak upstairs, dive under the covers. You know. Puts the key in the door, nice and quiet. He creeps his way upstairs, super, super quiet. Gets to the top of the landing, slips his jacket off, nice and quiet. He's like, right. Run straight in the bedroom, under the covers, eat a pussy. Yeah. 3, 2, 1. He fucking legs it into the bedroom. He dives straight under the covers, yeah? Spreads the legs, gets his face right in there. He's neck deep instantly, right? He's got his nose in there. He's furrowing his brow. He's rubbing his forehead on it like a washboard. She's going mental, writhing around all over the bed. She's squirting everywhere. She's screaming, having orgasms. It's ridiculous, yeah? By the time he's finished, like 10 minutes later, he's dripping, right? He's got it in his eyes, up his nostrils, everything. He's thinking, bleeding out, like, I need to go have a wash now. So he gets up, he walks out the bedroom, walks across the hallway, into the bathroom, opens the bathroom door, switches the light on. His wife sat there on the toilet. He's like, hey, hang on a minute, how the bleeding hell did you? She goes, shh, you're going to wake your fucking mother. So, yes, there we go. Right, folks, that's it. That's your first episode of the Ask Me Anything podcast. I'm not going to bother with any sort of fancy intros, outros, anything like that. If you enjoyed this episode, you can't comment on it or anything like that, but you can drop me an email, tell me what you liked about it, tell me what you didn't like. If you'd like your question included in the next episode, you've just got to drop me an email, which is danny@myownworstenemy.org. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. It's a lot more fun than the usual stuff we do. So, thank you very much for listening. I'll see you again next time.